The moon hung low like a silver drum in the sky, casting long shadows across the huts. While the village slept, Oba's feet carried him toward the forbidden river. Each step pressed against the earth as if the ancestors themselves weighed his decision. His heart pounded louder than the night crickets, yet his pride pushed him forward. He paused at the edge of the clearing. The river shimmered under moonlight, a snake of silver coils winding through the dark. The elders had warned, "No child of the living must enter when the night holds the river," but Oba clenched his fists. "I will not be a boy of shadows," he whispered. "I will prove myself." With that, he crept closer, every movement echoing against the silence. The air thickened. A cold wind brushed his cheek, though no leaves stirred. Then it came, the voices. Low at first, like humming through a cracked calabash, then sharper, clearer. "Oba!" His name floated across the water, broken into pieces, yet whole enough to strike fear into his chest. He spun around. No one stood behind him. The whispers rose, overlapping, weaving into a chorus of forgotten tongues. Some pleaded, some laughed, and some wept as though their sorrow had no end. Shadows rippled across the surface, moving without form. They beckoned, stretching toward the shore like unseen hands. Oba staggered back, his breath ragged, but his pride rooted him. The whispers grew bolder. "Come, child. The river remembers. The river waits." And though his body trembled, Oba stepped closer still. The river's skin shimmered under the moonlight, but it did not move like water should. No wind touched it, yet shapes stirred. Dark forms bent and stretched, twisting as though spirits were dancing across the surface. One moment they looked like children at play, the next like hunters chasing prey. Oba's eyes locked on them, unable to turn away. His breath caught in his throat. A laugh, sharp and hollow, rose from the ripples. Oba's fists tightened. "I am not afraid of shadows," he whispered, though his voice shook. The shapes swirled faster, pulling his gaze deeper, as if the water itself wished to swallow his spirit whole. Then it came. From beneath the still surface, something cold and cruel clamped around his ankle. Oba gasped, his body jerking backward, but the grip only tightened. The cold shot through his leg, colder than any mountain stream, colder than death itself. He clawed at the earth, dragging furrows into the soil, but the unseen hand pulled harder, dragging him toward the black current. "Let me go," he cried, his voice echoing into the empty night. The water surged, splashing though no stone was thrown. No fish stirred. His body lurched forward, his chest inches from the river's edge. He could feel the pull of something ancient, something hungry. And then, silence. The grip vanished. The water calmed. Only the sound of his ragged breathing filled the air. Oba stumbled back, heart racing, ankle burning with a frost that refused to fade. The river lay still once more, as though nothing had happened. But Oba knew something beneath had touched him, claimed him, and it was not yet finished. The silence of the night clung to Oba like a second skin. Yet in that silence came a voice, not from the air but from memory. Elder Nadi's words, spoken long ago by the fire, rose as if the man himself stood behind him. "Those who bathe at night do not always return the same," the old voice warned. "The river does not give back what it takes." Oba shivered, though no wind stirred. He could almost see the elder's wrinkled face, eyes heavy with secrets he never fully revealed. "The water belongs to more than fish and frogs after the sun sleeps," the memory whispered. "It belongs to those who hunger in the dark." By day, the village was alive with chatter, and the children's voices cut sharp through the air. They gathered by the stream, tossing stones and daring one another with wide grins. "Go bathe at night if you are brave," Malik taunted, his teeth flashing as others laughed. "Or is your heart too soft?" The children laughed louder, but their laughter cracked like thin clay. Each of them knew the tales. Each of them feared the shadows that lingered in the river when the moon was high. Yet they kept mocking, for mocking was safer than silence. Nia tugged Oba's arm, whispering, "Do not listen. The curse is real." Her voice shook, but no one cared. The laughter bit deep. Oba's face burned hot. His cousin's words stung sharper than a whip. He clenched his fists until his knuckles turned white. His heart pounded like a drum of war. "I will not be remembered as a coward," he muttered under his breath. He stepped forward, glaring at Malik. "If you are so bold with your tongue, then walk with me when the moon rises. Let us see who runs first." The group went silent, every laugh cut short. Malik's grin faltered, but pride forced it back onto his face. The children looked from one boy to the other, their eyes wide. No one dared to stop them. Pride had spoken, and pride was a dangerous master. The river, waiting in silence, had already claimed its next night. The village square grew silent, the kind of silence that presses against the chest. Torches burned low, their flames bending with the night wind. All eyes were on Oba. Children huddled close to their mothers, and even the elders leaned forward, waiting. Oba's voice rose, steady though his heart trembled. "I will walk to the river when the moon is highest," he declared, his fists clenched at his side. "I will see what waits in its depths. If there is truth to Elder Nadi's warning, let it take me. But if there is none, let my name be free from shame." A murmur spread like rustling leaves. Some gasped, others shook their heads. One old woman whispered, "A boy's pride can be heavier than a man's grave." But Oba stood firm, his shadow stretching tall against the firelight. The sun sank low, painting the sky in fire and ash. In the heart of the village, Oba's laughter rose above the drumming of children's feet. He leapt across the clay wall with ease, landing in the dust as though the earth itself bent to his will. The young ones cheered, calling his name, but their mothers frowned and muttered, "A boy who chases shadows will one day find himself caught." Still, Oba's spirit could not be tamed. His words were sharp, daring anyone to match his courage. To some, he was a spark of wonder. To others, he was a flame too wild to trust. Yet beneath every cheer lingered the weight of fear, for shadows are not chased without cost. That night, as the crickets sang, Nia drew close to her brother. Her voice trembled like the leaves brushing against the hut's thatch. "Oba," she whispered, "do not tempt the night. Spirits do not forgive when men break the old taboos." He laughed softly, brushing away her fear with a careless wave. "Sister, you worry too much. Have you ever seen a spirit?" Nia's eyes burned with unshed tears. "That is why I fear them. They are unseen until they strike. Do not walk where the river swallows the moon. Promise me." But Oba's silence was heavier than words. His pride would not bow, even before his sister's trembling plea. At the edge of the gathering fire, Elder Kofi sat, his staff buried deep in the earth. His eyes followed Oba, not with anger, but with the sorrow of a man who had seen too much. When the children's laughter swelled, he raised his hand, and silence fell like a curtain. "Do you know," he said, voice low and heavy, "why the owl hides its face in daylight? It has seen things too dark for the sun." The villagers exchanged uneasy glances. Oba met his gaze boldly, but the elder's stare pierced deeper than pride. He spoke no warning outright, yet his words carried the weight of unseen truths. And though Oba stood tall, a shiver crawled along his spine, for riddles often carried a burden heavier than commands. The children gathered under the great Iroko tree, their laughter rising like restless birds. Malik, Oba's cousin, stepped forward with a sly grin. His voice was sharp, meant to cut deeper than any spear. "Oba," he sneered, "you speak like a lion, but your heart is that of a goat. If you are so bold, why not test the river's curse? Or are you afraid the spirits will drag you away like they did the weak ones before you?" The other children burst into laughter, their claps echoing like drums of mockery. Malik's words spread through the circle, biting at Oba's pride. The sound of that laughter, so cruel, so heavy, wrapped itself around Oba like chains. Oba's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Only his eyes betrayed the fire that Malik had stoked. As the night breeze swept through the village, whispers rose among the elders and mothers who stood nearby. Their voices carried memories too heavy to speak aloud in daylight. They said a duke went only to fetch water. "Yet the river swallowed her," murmured one. And Kweku, another added, her voice trembling. He boasted he feared nothing. By morning, only his sandals floated by the bank. The stories twined together like smoke, thick with sorrow and fear. Children's eyes widened as they listened, yet their ears clung to every word. The river was no mere water. It was a mouth, a spirit, a judge that chose without mercy. Still, even in the weight of those tales, Malik's mocking smile lingered, daring Oba to carry the burden of courage or the stain of shame. Oba's chest rose and fell as if his own heart were a drum. Malik's words stabbed him again and again, each one louder than the last. The laughter of the children still clung to the air, sharper than the chill of night. Coward, the word echoed in his skull, even though no one spoke it now. His hands curled into fists, his pride burning hotter than his fear. Nia's voice came to him like a whisper of wind, reminding him of her warning. Elder Kofi's riddles weighed like stones, yet Malik's challenge blazed brighter. Oba lifted his chin, a spark of reckless fire dancing in his eyes. The shame had done its work. His pride was now a torch, pushing him toward the path from which so many had never returned. Oba sat apart from the other children, his eyes fixed on the dark line of trees that shielded the river. Their laughter still rang in his ears, sharp as spear tips, but it was not the sound that burned him. It was the thought that he would be remembered as weak. In a village where names were carried in songs, he feared his would fade like smoke. He whispered to himself, "A man is not measured by his fears, but by what he dares." His young chest rose proudly, though his hands trembled. He imagined elders speaking his name, not with pity but with respect. He saw himself as the boy who faced the river and silenced every mocking tongue. Honor. That was the fire he chased. A fire bright enough to blind him to the shadows gathering at the water's edge. Beyond the laughter of children and the calm hum of crickets, something else stirred. The river was not still, it listened. Its dark surface rippled, though no wind touched it. From its depths, whispers rose faint as breath, voices of those lost, voices that had once made promises under the same moonlight. Branches bent, though no hand touched them. A cold mist curled along the bank, waiting like a serpent in tall grass. The spirits, bound to the ancient curse, leaned closer, unseen yet patient. In their silence was hunger. In their waiting was certainty. Oba, still dreaming of songs that would honor his name, did not know the river had already answered him. His pride had called and the unseen had heard. His fate had begun to stir long before his lips would shape the promise. Oba's chest heaved as Malik's laughter echoed in his mind. The sting of mockery burned hotter than the midday sun, and pride pressed on him like a heavy drumbeat. He stood before the gathering of children, his fists clenched, his voice sharp with fire. "I will not be called coward," he shouted, his words cutting the air. "If the river swallows men, let it try me. Tonight I will step into its waters, and the spirits will know my name." Gasps broke from the circle. Nia, his sister, rushed forward, her eyes wide with fear. "Oba, stop! Do not speak promises you cannot take back. The river remembers every word." But Oba's jaw tightened. The shame of laughter, the hunger for honor, and the desire to silence every doubt drowned out her plea. His heart was young, but it beat with dangerous defiance. The night deepened as Oba drew near the river's edge. Crickets hushed, and the moon shivered against the black water. Then it came, a sound not carried by wind or beast. A low laughter rolled across the surface, thin and hollow, as if the river itself mocked him. The ripples danced like sneering mouths, and the sound sank deep into his chest. Oba froze, his breath trembling. "Who laughs at me?" he demanded, forcing his voice to rise against the fear tightening his throat. The water stirred an answer, but no human face broke the surface. The laughter grew louder, filling the night, wrapping him in scorn. His own bold words now sounded small, swallowed by the unseen. From the shifting waves, a figure slowly formed. The water bent and twisted, shaping itself into a face Oba knew too well. Malik. His cousin's grin shimmered in the moonlight, his eyes glinting with mockery. Brave Oba, the watery figure whispered, the voice both Malik's and not his. You chase honor, but honor is a shadow. Step closer, and the truth will be yours. Oba's breath caught. You're not him, he muttered, his body tense. The figure laughed, the sound a blend of river and man. Am I not? Did I not mock you today? Do I not stand here daring you still? Or perhaps I am the river, wearing his face to show you what you fear most. Oba's pride battled with terror, each word sinking into him like a thorn. The river was no longer just water. It had a voice, a face, a will of its own. Nia lay restless on her mat, staring at the roof of the hut as the night winds hissed through the trees. Her brother's words from earlier still stung her ears, heavy with defiance. Sleep would not come. Fear pressed on her chest like a stone. Quiet as a cat, she rose and slipped into the darkness. The village lay still, huts breathing in silence, while her bare feet patted against the earth. She followed the faint trail toward the river, her heart racing faster with every step. When she reached the reeds, she crouched low, her breath heavy, her eyes searching for Oba's shadow. From her hiding place, she prayed silently, Spirits of our mothers, guard him, for he knows not the danger he calls. The river's surface shifted strangely under the moon. Nia's eyes widened as shapes began to form in the water, faces she knew, faces she had seen buried long ago. A boy who vanished years before stretched out his pale hand, his lips moving without sound. Behind him, a woman with empty eyes floated, her braids swaying like weeds. The water rippled with their movements, each one reaching, grasping for the living. Nia clutched her chest, trembling. Her body begged her to scream, but her voice died in her throat. No, it cannot be, she whispered. Tears welled in her eyes, but she dared not look away. For every vision the river showed, another followed. A mother searching, a child crying, a crowd of the vanished pressing against the surface. It was not water anymore, but a mirror of sorrow and fear. Oba's voice cut through the night, sharp as a spear. Nia, why are you here? She stumbled from the reeds, her face pale, her hands shaking. Brother, I beg you, leave this place. The river is cursed. Can you not see what it shows? Her voice cracked with desperation as she pointed toward the shifting waters. But Oba's eyes narrowed. His fists clenched at his sides, his pride stiffening his spine. You're afraid of shadows, he said, his words hard. I am not. Oba, listen, Nia cried. The dead call out, their hands reach for you. Do not follow them into the dark. Oba shook his head, his jaw set. Better to face shadows than to live a coward. I will not turn back. Nia's tears fell, but her brother's pride towered above her pleas. Between them, the river roared with silent laughter. The night pressed heavy as Oba stood at the riverbank, his chest rising and falling with fire. His eyes locked on Malik, the cousin whose laughter had cut deepest in the courtyard. With a sharp voice, he declared, If your tongue is so bold by day, let it be bold by night. Come, Malik, step into the water with me. The cousins who had gathered behind Malik grew still. Their smirks faded, their whispers broken by silence. Malik's jaw tightened, but no word left his lips. Oba took a step forward, the moonlight catching the defiance in his eyes. Ah, so this is the truth, he said. Your courage is a mask, your silence the cloth of fear. You mock me from afar, yet tremble at the river's edge. The crowd shifted uneasily, the night air thick with shame and challenge. Malik's breath came hard, his chest heavy like a drum before breaking. At last he spoke, his voice low, carrying the weight of secrets buried too long. You think me weak, Oba, he said, staring at the restless water. But I have been where you boast of going. His words silenced the night. Even the crickets seemed to stop their song. I stepped into this river, Malik continued, his voice trembling, and it swallowed me whole. The current was not water, it was hands, pulling, clawing, dragging me down. I fought until my lungs burned and my cries became nothing but bubbles. By some mercy I escaped. He shuddered, his eyes glassy with terror. I carry that night in my bones. If I mock you, it is not to wound you, cousin. It is to keep you from walking where the living do not belong." From the shadows, a staff struck the ground with a heavy thud. All turned, and there stood Elder Kofi, his frame bent with years, his eyes deep as the river itself. For long he had held his tongue, but now his voice rose, low and grave. "Children," he said, "your pride blinds you. Your fear consumes you. Hear the truth that the old ones keep." He lifted his hand toward the water, where the moon's reflection quivered like a restless spirit. "The river at night is not yours to enter. It is claimed by those the world has forgotten. Souls without graves, voices without names. They linger, waiting, jealous of breath and heartbeat. Step where they dwell, and you trade places with them." His words rolled heavy, like stones in the chest. A man may escape once, but no man escapes twice. The hush that followed was deeper than silence, as though even the river held its breath. The night wind hissed through the reeds as the children, shaken by Elder Kofi's words, hurried back toward the village. Their whispers faded into the darkness, their footsteps swallowed by the earth. Yet Oba did not move. He stood rooted at the water's edge, his eyes burning with a fire stronger than fear. Fear. The river stirred, though no stone had been cast. Ripples spread across its surface, gentle at first, then curling into shapes that seemed almost like fingers brushing the moonlight. From deep within, something watched. Its presence was felt, not seen, like a shadow behind the eyes, heavy and cold. A whisper slid over the water, soft as breath, yet sharp as a blade. "Promises cannot be broken." Oba's chest tightened. Though the others had fled, the river had not. It waited, patient, hungry, and sure. The suspense of night refused to rest. The night was heavy with silence, broken only by the hum of crickets and the distant hoot of an owl. Oba stood at the riverbank, his bare feet pressing into the cool earth. Above him the moon sat high, glowing like a crown set by unseen hands. He felt its silver gaze upon him, as though the ancestors themselves leaned down from the sky to watch. His chest rose and fell with sharp breaths, but his eyes did not waver. The whispers of the villagers still echoed in his ears, Malik's laughter, the doubts, the shame. Now, standing alone, he whispered to the night, "I will not be forgotten. Let the river know my name." The waters shimmered, dark and endless. The air thickened, as if the earth itself held its breath. The midnight drumbeat had begun, silent, steady, and unyielding. Oba's fists tightened at his sides. Defiance burned hotter than fear within his chest. With one last glance toward the sleeping village, he stepped forward. The cold water kissed his ankles, then his knees, then his chest, pulling him deeper. His heart pounded like a talking drum, each beat daring the river to deny him. Then, with a cry that cut through the silence, he plunged beneath the surface. The still night shattered. The water roared in his ears, fierce and wild, as though the river itself had awakened from slumber. Bubbles danced around him like spirits rising, and the current wrapped his body, dragging him into its secret belly. Yet Oba did not scream. His pride was stronger than breath. The leap had been made, and there was no turning back. The river did not welcome him. It tightened, coiling like a serpent guarding treasure. Invisible hands clawed at his arms and legs, pulling him down where no light dared to follow. His lungs burned, his eyes wide, but all he saw was shifting shadow. Faces that flickered and vanished, eyes that glowed without bodies, whispers that circled like hunters around prey. Oba struggled, but the water pressed harder, thick as chains. The surface, once so near, now felt as distant as the stars above. In the crushing silence, a voice rose from the depths, not heard by ears, but carved into his heart. "You belong to us now." Oba's spirit trembled, yet his pride refused to bow. Even in the serpent's grip, he kicked against the darkness, fighting to hold on to the light fading above him. Oba's eyes snapped open, but the world around him was not the world he had left behind. He floated in a silence too deep to be real, beneath waters that glowed with an eerie fire. Strange light shimmered on every ripple, turning darkness into a ghostly mirror. Around him, trees rose tall, but their branches were not of wood. They were bone, stretching like pale fingers toward a sky that did not exist. Each tree creaked and groaned, as though alive with ancient sorrow. Oba's breath caught in his chest. "Where am I?" he whispered, his voice trembling into the endless current. The river below seemed to answer, its floor alive with glowing embers that burned without flame. He felt the weight of unseen eyes pressing on him, watching, waiting. It was no longer just water, it was the under-river realm, a place whispered of in tales, but never meant for the living. From the shifting waters they rose, figures dazzling in beauty yet laced with terror. Their skin gleamed like moonlight on water, their eyes as deep as night. Long hair flowed around them like serpents, and in their smiles glimmered sharp fangs hidden beneath sweetness. Oba froze as their laughter rolled over him, sweet and cruel, like honey dripping from a blade. One drew near, her voice a riddle. "Child of dust, why do you trespass? Do you seek glory or do you seek chains?" Another circled, her touch cool as ice brushing his shoulder. "We are the daughters of the deep guardians of forgotten truth. Men call us with songs, yet fear our gaze. Tell us, boy, are you brave or are you foolish?" Their words wrapped around him, twisting his courage and stirring his fear. Oba's heart thudded against his chest. "I came," he said, his voice breaking, "to prove I am not afraid." The spirits only smiled, their eyes gleaming like predators waiting for a stumble. Suddenly, the waters trembled, and the laughter of the daughters turned sharp. From the glowing depths, voices rose, not of beauty, but of pain. Pale faces emerged, mouths open in silent screams, eyes hollow with grief. They reached out with hands of shadow, pointing accusing fingers at Oba. "You took the land from us," one voice thundered. "You forgot the pact of your fathers," cried another, her tone like waves crashing against stone. Their accusations echoed through the under-river realm, heavy with bitterness. The bone trees shook, rattling like drums of mourning. Oba staggered back, his breath shallow. He wanted to speak, to deny their words, but the truth pressed heavy. He knew this was not just his trial. It was the weight of his people, the forgotten debts of the living to the dead. The river had remembered, and it demanded an answer. The water shivered with whispers, and the daughters of the deep began to circle again, their laughter slicing through the gloom. Then one voice, sharp as a blade, rose above the rest. "Oba, son of the village, do you not know why we called your name? Your blood is here not by chance. It was promised." Oba froze, his breath burning in his chest. "Promised by whom?" The waters parted, and Malik stumbled forward, his face pale as river clay. His voice cracked, his secret spilling like a wound. "It was me," he said, trembling. "The night I came here, the spirits demanded a name to spare my life. I gave them yours. The world seemed to split. Oba's heart thundered louder than the river's roar. "You gave them my name?" His voice shook with both grief and fury. "Your own blood? To save yourself?" Malik's head bowed, shame pressing on his shoulders. "I thought I would die. I thought you would never know. Forgive me, Oba. I was weak. But forgiveness did not come. The weight of betrayal struck harder than any spirit's curse. The air between them cracked, filled with rage and sorrow that no drum could silence. Oba's eyes burned as he stepped closer, his words trembling like a spear held too long. "We shared bread from the same fire, Malik. We hunted together. And yet, you fed me to the river like a goat for slaughter." The spirits laughed, savoring the breaking of brotherhood. The bone trees shook with their cruel joy. Malik wept, but Oba's tears came not as water but as fire, his grief blazing into defiance. He turned from Malik and faced the glowing waters. "If this is my fate, then I will not meet it crawling. I will not bow to fear, not to spirits, and not to betrayal. Let the river know my name from my own mouth, not from the lips of a coward." His voice carried sharp and steady, echoing through the under-river realm. For the first time, the laughter of the spirits faltered, and in the silence that followed, Oba stood taller, the boy of mockery now a young man burning with defiance. The air thickened, heavy with voices that pierced like spears. The spirits circled, their laughter echoing against the underriver walls. "See how the brave one shakes. See how the cousin betrays." They jeered, their words sharp as thorns. Malik's knees quivered, his hands clutching the edge of his torn robe. "Please, I did not mean." His words cracked, swallowed by the cruel chorus. But Oba's chest rose, and his voice struck like the beat of a war drum. "Enough!" His shout silenced the mockery for a breath. "You spirits feed on fear, but you will not feast on mine. And you, Malik, your trembling does not hide your guilt. The truth stands naked in the dark." The river groaned, unsettled, as if listening. Oba stepped forward, his shadow long against the glowing waters. His voice carried the weight of ancestors, strong and unbending. "You want my name?" he thundered. "Then take it from my lips, not from a coward's whisper. I am Oba, son of the earth, child of fire. I will not crawl, I will not beg. If death waits, let it find me standing. If death waits, let it find me standing." The spirits hissed, swirling in anger, their shapes twisting like storm clouds. Malik covered his face, but Oba's eyes blazed with defiance. In that moment, he was no longer the mocked boy of the village. He was the lion who roars against the hunter, the flame that refuses to die in the storm. The silence that followed trembled with power, a silence heavy enough to shake even the unseen. The storm inside Oba's chest slowed as a memory struck him. Elder Kofi's voice rose from the past, clear as the beating of a drum. "The river takes only what is freely given." The words cracked like thunder in his mind. He finally understood. The spirits had no true power unless he bowed, unless he offered himself. They could mock, they could howl, but they could not claim what he refused to surrender. His eyes widened, and a spark of strength lit within him like fire catching dry wood. The spirits pressed closer, their voices curling like smoke. "Give us your name, boy. Bend, and we shall leave you whole." But Oba straightened his back. His hands no longer shook. "No," he said, his voice steady as the ground beneath his feet. "I will not be your offering. I will not trade myself for shadows." Malik gasped, fear choking him. But Oba stood like the Iroko tree, tall against the storm. The chains of fear shattered inside him, one by one. The world around them groaned, as though the river itself had heard. The glowing waters thrashed, and the bone trees cracked like drums beaten by unseen hands. Darkness peeled away from the sky. The curse trembled, trembling because it could no longer hold him. Oba's courage was the axe, and every word he spoke cut deeper into its roots. "You cannot bind me," he roared. "I walk with the truth, and truth is stronger than your lies." The spirits shrieked, their faces breaking like clay pots cast against stone. The underriver realm folded in upon itself, collapsing in a storm of water and fire. Yet in the heart of that storm, Oba stood firm, no longer a boy trembling at whispers, but a man who had faced the shadows and broken free. The spirits hissed like 1,000 snakes, their voices weaving into one dreadful chant. Malik fell to his knees, his face pale, his lips trembling. "No, I beg you, take him, not me. Oba is strong. He will endure." But the waters knew the truth, and truth does not spare the guilty. A cold hand of mist wrapped around Malik's ankle. He screamed, clawing at the earth, but the ground beneath him melted into water. Oba watched, his chest heavy with both anger and sorrow. "Brother," he whispered, "your own betrayal has chosen your path." Malik's cries rose, high and broken, then were swallowed as the spirits dragged him under, leaving only ripples on the cursed river. Oba gasped as the waters heaved, tossing him upward. His arms thrashed, clawing through foam and firelight. At last, daylight tore through the darkness. The river spat him out upon its shore like a broken shell. He lay on the earth, scarred and trembling, his chest burning for breath. His skin bore marks like flames carved by unseen hands, yet his spirit was unbroken. Slowly, painfully he rose, his shadow stretching long beneath the sun. The villagers had gathered, drawn by the river's roar. Their laughter died, their whispers fell silent. Eyes widened, mouths hung open. "Oba!" One voice broke the stillness, heavy with disbelief. They saw the scars that lined his body, the weight of his survival etched into his face. Not even the proudest elder spoke. They stood frozen, caught between awe and fear, as if the spirits themselves still lingered in the air around him. Through the stunned silence of the crowd, a single cry broke free. "Oba!" It was Nia, her voice quivering like a bird's wing in the storm. She pushed past the elders, past the fearful villagers, and fell to her knees beside him. Her arms wrapped around his weary body, pulling him close. Tears streamed down her cheeks, warm against his scarred skin. "Brother, the river tried to steal you, but the ancestors would not let go." Oba's breath shook, his voice low. "Nia, it is your faith that carried me back." They clung to each other, trembling, one with relief, the other with sorrow, while the village watched in silence. But the river was not done speaking. Its surface stirred, and as the moon climbed, a crimson glow spread across the waters. The current turned blood red, its eerie light painting the village in a veil of dread. The laughter that had begun to rise froze on lips. Children hid behind their mothers. Elders bowed their heads, whispering prayers. The river pulsed as if alive, a final omen whispered by the spirits. In that silence, heavy as stone, the people understood. Though Oba had returned, the river's hunger had not been satisfied. The voice of the elders rises like a drumbeat in the dark. "Children never forget," it says. "The river is not only water, the forest not only trees, the night not only a curtain of black. These are living spirits, keepers of secrets older than stone. Show them respect, for when humans mock what they do not understand, the spirits answer with lessons carved in pain." The fire crackles, carrying the weight of the warning into every ear. Yet, courage without wisdom is like a hunter who sharpens his spear but closes his eyes in the chase. Oba's journey teaches us this truth. Bravery is not shown by trampling on sacred paths or mocking the taboos of old. No, real courage lies in knowing which truths are sacred, which lines must never be crossed, and bowing one's head when the ancestors demand silence. Pride alone, without wisdom, leads only to the jaws of ruin. And so, Malik's fall stands as a shadow across every household. Betrayal is no small wound, but when it flows from one's own bloodline, the cut reaches deepest. The ancestors do not forget such treachery, for trust broken within the family shakes the foundation of the community. Malik's cries were swallowed by the river. But his punishment was not his alone. It became a warning etched into the memory of the village. Betrayal of kin is betrayal of the ancestors themselves. The elders say, "A proverb is not a feather to tickle the ear, but a shield forged from the battles of our forefathers." Oba's tale proves this truth. When the voice of the ancestors speaks, it is not to amuse, but to guard. Those who laugh at warnings walk naked into the storm, and their downfall stains not only their name, but the name of the whole village. To honor ancestral words is to honor life itself. And still, the river keeps its voice. The villagers whisper a warning that drifts through generations. When night falls and the river calls, remember, not every bath is meant for the living. These words settle like ash upon the heart, for the river waits in silence, and the spirits never sleep. And the spirits never sleep.